Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And on today, I'm answering questions from listeners of the podcast. Now, first off, I want to say to anyone that has submitted a question to me, thank you very much. You can always do so by going to facebook.com, search State of the Saints podcast, or you can reach me on Gmail at stateofthesaints@gmail.com. But the first question came from Aaron Myers. Aaron Myers, thank you for listening to the podcast and viewing the podcast. He asked a question about Andrus Peat. Now, he said, due to the success of Nick Easton, should the New Orleans Saints not re-sign Andrus Peat next year? Of course, we know about Nick Easton. Nick Easton played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, did a really good job. The Saints signed him in the offseason from the Minnesota Vikings. They thought that he was probably going to take over at the center position, but Eric McCoy has been doing an outstanding job. According to Pro Football Focus, Eric McCoy is one of the best at his position, not just among rookies, but among people at his position. So you're not going to get rid of that. So Nick Easton was kind of in limbo. And now we see that Andrus Peat goes down for 6 weeks. In comes Nick Easton. And now the question about Andrus Peat seems to be something that needs to be discussed. In my opinion, Andrus Peat was not going to get re-signed by the New Orleans Saints. Now, I didn't think there was any way that he was going to come back. Quite frankly, it's because of the inconsistency of Andrus Peat. Now, Andrus Peat is a good football player. I think he's going to be one of those guys that play for a very long time. I mean, he came out of Stanford, very smart guy. He came out a little bit smaller than most at his position, but, he bulked up. And he's been a very steady hand on the offensive line. The problem is, once again, he's inconsistent, and I don't think the Saints are going to re-sign him. But he did put himself in good position because due to the injuries of Teron Armstead, he was able to play several positions. And we also know Zach Strief, before Ryan Ramczyk sold up the right tackle position, he used to move over to right tackle too. So once you are a guy that can play multiple positions on the offensive line, you can kind of pick your money, so to speak. You can make money at the left guard, or you can make money at the left tackle. Teams are always looking for good left tackles, and Andrus Peat is going to get a lot of money from somebody, because I don't think they're going to put him at the guard position. I think they're most likely going to put him at the left tackle position, and we all know that the left tackle is one of the highest paid players on the team. He also talked about Aaron Myers. He wanted me to answer the question about re-signing some of the Saints players like, Eli Apple and Von Bell, people like that. In my opinion, I think that Eli Apple is probably going to be a cap casualty. I think he's going to end up leaving the New Orleans Saints. That's why I think the Saints need to end up drafting a cornerback to replace him. As far as Von Bell, I can see him being re-signed by the New Orleans Saints. You also asked me about Drew Brees, about if Drew Brees is going to take a cut, or is he going to ride off into the sunset with his $20 million. Me personally, I wouldn't, this wasn't the most popular thing to say, but I said I wouldn't re-sign back Drew Brees due to the fact that he demands so much money. And then I feel like the Saints are going to try their best to try to re-sign Teddy Bridgewater and to be the future of the New Orleans Saints. I think that there's a reason why he ended up re-signing with the Saints. I think something was promised to him. The problem is I don't think the Saints expected him to play this season. And because he played this season, a lot of people seen that he went 5-0 with the New Orleans Saints. They seen him do some good things. So Teddy Bridgewater is going to get a lot of phone calls this offseason, and it might be the reason why the New Orleans Saints won't be able to sign him. But I would try to do my best to re-sign Teddy Bridgewater. If you can't, then I try to, maybe get Drew Brees one more year. I think he has like an extra year on his contract, if I'm not mistaken. So I would try to, keep him for an extra year and try to get somebody in the draft. And one person that I think the Saints may need to look at would be Tua Tagovailoa. And people are saying, probably saying to themselves, man, you crazy. Tua is not going to be there when the Saints pick. I don't know about that. teams want a quarterback that is ready at the start of the draft, that's ready to go. And the injury that was sustained by Tua Tagovailoa might be one of those things that'll get him pushed back. I always use like the example of Willis McGahee, one of the top running backs in football coming out of Miami. He was definitely going to be a top 5 pick, but he ended up messing up his ACL, MCL, LCL, NAACP, FBI, and NRA. But nah, man, I mean, I know that ain't funny, but at the end of the day, it messed up his draft stock. And he fell all the way down to the Buffalo Bills. So this might be one of those situations where the New Orleans Saints can end up getting Tua Tagovailoa, having Drew Brees play and Tua play behind him, have almost like a redshirt year. You also still have Taysom Hill, so I think you can go that route. But I think that the Saints may need to do that. But I wouldn't try my best to try to re-sign Drew Brees like I would in the past. I know a lot of people get mad at me for saying that, but it is what it is. No quarterback that I've seen, for the exception of Tom Brady, has played in the same place throughout his entire career. And also Dan Marino. But, at the end of the day, you look at some of the greats like Joe Montana, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning. You look at people like that, they didn't stay in one place. So if Drew Brees decides to play again, I think Drew Brees understands that it's all about business. But I think something was said behind closed doors. I believe that Drew Brees would have retired if the Saints would have ended up going to the Super Bowl. That's just my opinion. But I think that he ended up coming back. And that's the reason why Teddy Bridgewater ended up being a backup quarterback, because something was promised to him. There's not a player that I know that would give up so much of the money. I think he gave up maybe like $14 or $15 million that he would have got in Miami just to come to back up Drew Brees. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I feel like that is one of those situations where the organization told Teddy that you're the quarterback of the future. But that question came from Aaron Myers. Thank you again. And once again, if you have any questions that you want to ask me about the black and gold, please do. I really do appreciate it. Thank you all very much for checking out this video. And also, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search The State of the Saints Podcast. And also, facebook.com, search State of the Saints Podcast. My name is TJ Jones. And like always, all I got to say is, who dat?